A couple months ago, I'm sure you remember this perfectly, we talked a little bit about something called vectors. Okay, what's the quote from the movie?
Speed and altitude. No.
Speed
Magnitude.
and
Something
aerodynamics.
magnitude.
It's magnitude.
Yeah, it's magnitude and velocity, or direction, right? In the movie?
Direction and magnitude.
Direction and magnitude, yeah.
I almost.
Okay, we used vectors a little bit in some chapter, I don't remember which one, but we're actually going to learn them a little more in depth than we did back then. So vector V, the little symbol on top, kind of looks like a half arrow, so that's vector V. So usually we describe vectors according to their components, like how far is this moving in the x direction, that's the x component, and how far is it moving in the y direction. So how far is this vector moving in the x direction? 2. How far is it moving in the y direction? 4. It's 3. Okay, so we don't use parentheses because it's not a point on the graph. We use these arrow thingies. Anyway, so vector V is 2, 3. That means it's moving right 2, up 3. Okay, does it matter where it starts on the graph? No. If I have vector W over here, that's the same exact vector, 2, 3. So there's not really a starting point. There's just a direction and a magnitude. Now, what do you guys think magnitude might mean? I don't think you're going to guess this. Okay, all magnitude means is the length of the vector. Vectors can represent, they can represent distance, just like, the car drove from there to there. They can represent speed. They can represent force. Like, for example, if you hit a golf ball 300 yards this way, but you have a wind vector like going 15 miles an hour this way, those represent force. And the new vector would look like this. Your golf ball goes off to the side. So anyway, they can represent lots of stuff. I think in this lesson they'll do like one of each. Distance, speed, force. Okay, but magnitude, all magnitude means is how long is this vector. The vector's length can represent, how strong the force is or whatever. But how would we find this length right here?
Slope.
Okay, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Because when I draw in the x and the y, it makes a little right triangle, right? So yeah, it's 2 squared plus 3 squared equals, whatever, x squared. So we're going to have to do Pythagorean theorem with that. So basically when you have the coordinates 2 and 3, you just do 2 squared plus 3 squared. And then because that equals x squared, you basically have to square root that. Square root. So anyway, that would be like square root of 13. I think sometimes we might put the decimal, sometimes we might put this. Today kind of jumps back and forth. Okay, but anyway, that's the magnitude of the vector. Sometimes magnitude is indicated with these absolute value symbols. It just means this is how long the vector is. The other thing that we're going to do today is direction. And by direction, we're going to say like, from the horizontal, how many degrees up is this? So from this horizontal line, how many degrees above that line is it? So how would we find this angle right here?
Trigonometry.
Yes. How did we do that with trigonometry?
You have the adjacent and the opposite.
Right. Relative to this angle, we have the what and the what?
Adjacent and opposite.
Opposite and adjacent. Which trig function has opposite and adjacent?
Tangent.
Tangent, right. So, you guys remember SOHCAHTOA, I didn't start off with it, but tangent of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. It's been a while since we've done this one. What do we plug in to find the angle here?
The opposite, it starts with an N.
It starts with an I.
or inverse.
Yeah, tangent inverse of 3/2. Anyway, that's what we plug in the calculator, spits out our angle. Somebody, yeah, go ahead and plug that in. Let's get an answer on that.
56.301.
Okay, 56.3, that would be like degrees. We're gonna be a little bit more specific than that. We're gonna say, I'm not sure if I'm a fan of this, but what this book says is 56.3 degrees above the positive x-axis. What is the positive x-axis?
To the right.
That's, yeah, this thing. So if the vector was going like this way, it might be 56.3 degrees below the positive x-axis. Or if it was over here, it might be 56.3 degrees above the negative x-axis. I'm not going to be too picky. As long as you say above the x-axis or below the x-axis, we'll call that good. But that's not everything, but that's enough to get us going. So we got magnitude, which we can find using Pythagorean theorem. 2 squared plus 3 squared equals x squared. And we have direction, which we're going to have to use tangent inverse to find that degree. All right, let's look at number 1. Number 1's actually a lot easier than that stuff. So on number 1, it says find the vector in component form. Vector u. Do you guys see vector u in that picture?
Yeah.
Okay, so component form just means how far is it going in the x direction, how far is it going in the y direction. I think it looks like that, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yes, okay. So how far is it going in the x direction?
4.
Yeah. It's going 4 that way,
And 2 down.
and it's going 2 down. So for 2 down, I'm going to put
Negative.
negative, right, negative 2.
Did you say 5?
Does it matter if we do these thingies instead of the parentheses?
Okay, why do we use this instead of parentheses?
Because it's vector.
Okay, because if I put parentheses, what does this mean?
Oh, that means a dot.
It means a dot, yeah, it means a point on the graph. So they changed a little bit. Actually, if you go into old books, like, you know, when I was in high school, they did use parentheses. But they thought better of it, I guess. Number 3. All right, you guys see W on there?
Yep.
Okay, so what is the x component? How far is it moving in the x direction?
2.
Negative 2.
Right, it's moving 2 to the left, so that'd be more like a negative 2. We're on number 3. And then how far is it moving in the y direction?
2.
Up 2, right. So that would be a positive 2. Okay, number 5. The y. Okay, so we're starting with the x component, so that means how far is it moving, like left or right? On the y, vector y.
What'd you say?
We're on number 5. How far are we moving in the x component for the y vector?
Negative 3.
Right. It's moving left 3. So yes, that would be a negative 3. And then, how far are we moving up or down?
Negative 4.
Right, moving down 4, so that, yes, that would be negative 4. All right, any questions on that part? Okay. The next 2 sections, it gets kind of hard, and then at the last 2 sections, it's kind of easy. See if we make it or not. Okay, 7, this is kind of what I was doing at the beginning, though. Actually, I don't want to start with 7, I want to start with 6. So 6 is, we're looking for the magnitude and direction of vector u. Vector u is what we found on number 1, was the 4, negative 2. Okay, so what did I say magnitude meant?
Like the Pythagorean theorem.
It means the length
Oh, yeah.
of the vector. Yes, we do use Pythagorean theorem. And how did I say we're going to find the length of this vector?
You make a triangle.
Yeah, it's Pythagorean theorem. So it's 4 squared plus negative 2 squared. Now, negative 2 squared is the same thing as 2 squared, right? So you don't really need the negatives for this part. But that equals x squared, so we can do the square root of that. So 16 plus 4 is 20. So the book actually put the square root answer and they put the decimal answer. I am just going to do the square root answer. 2 squared 5. Well done. Okay, so yeah, let's put that over here. Okay, that is the magnitude. That's how long it is. Okay, the second question is, what's the direction? How are we going to find the direction?
The inverse thing.
Yes, that's how we did it. It's the, what's this angle right here is what they need. So, yeah, we're going to use trig for this part. Relative to this angle, what two sides do we have?
Adjacent and opposite.
Right, which is
Tangent.
tangent. And that's going to happen every time on the direction. It's going to be tangent. So it's tangent of angle A equals opposite
So 2.
negative 2 over adjacent.
4.
So what do we plug in the calculator?
Let me do it.
Tangent inverse.
What?
26.
Linux got it.
You just ruined Emily's chance.
Yes, I
Okay,
did.
what's it, 26.6? Bitter. Okay, so it's 26.6, and I'm gonna be a little more descriptive. It's 26.6 degrees below the x-axis.
Yeah.
26.
No, above.
Huh?
Below.
It's going down.
Oh. Oh, I see it.
Below positive x-axis. All right, that's the second answer. All right, now number 7. I didn't want to start with this one because it's a little bit too basic. You don't really need tricks for number 7 because it's going straight up. You guys see vector v in the picture? So the magnitude, we don't need the Pythagorean theorem because what would the magnitude, what's the length of vector v? 3. Because it's just going 3 up. So you go to the end of the arrow, not like the base of the arrow. So it does go up to 3. So the magnitude is just 3. And what is the direction of the vector?
3 is
Three above the x-axis.
Direction's an angle. So if we're like right here, what's that angle? 90. So it's 90 degrees above x-axis. It's not really positive or negative x-axis, it's just above. All right. Number 9, vector x. Okay, that's kind of the one I did in my example at the beginning. Accidentally. So what are the components for vector x? What's the x and y value for this one? 2 and 3. So that was like an example at the beginning. So how do we find the magnitude? How long is this right here? Right. 2 squared plus 3 squared equals x squared. That's not a vector. 4 plus 9 is 13. So you do the square root of that, you get square root of 13. We're not going to... Okay, so we also need the angle, the direction right here. Okay, so here's our angle. Relative to this angle, we have the opposite and adjacent, which means we're going to use tangent. So tangent of the angle equals the opposite over adjacent. So we're gonna plug in
Tangent inverse, 3/2.
oh yeah, this was my example from before. So was it 56.2 degrees? 3? 56.3 degrees above positive x axis. All right, and for that. Okay, express each vector in component form, round answers to the nearest tenth. So what do they mean by 12 at 30 degrees below the positive x-axis? I'll draw this. So where would 30 degrees below the positive x-axis, where would that be?
Do we have to draw it or you just draw?
It's not part of the question. It does help you to figure it out though. So 30 degrees below, where would that be? Roman all star. Did you answer any questions, Roman?
Roman's walking back in here.
Okay, 30 degrees.
He's like, is that Top Gun Maverick you guys are talking about? It's like, no, that was Despicable Me. We were talking about Vector.
Is there even a vector?
Top Gun Maverick.
And he's like,
You should have
this
said
algebra
yes,
too? I
Roman.
was like, no, this is geometry. He goes, just releasing stuff.
I looked over and you saw this phone the whole time.
Okay, anyways, 30 degrees below the positive x-axis will look something like that. 30 degrees.
We need a graph?
No, that's not really part of the question. And it says 12 means the vector is 12 long. So they're giving us the magnitude and direction basically. And we've got to figure out the components. We got to go backwards. So by components, what they mean is like how far is it going in the x direction and how far is it going in the y direction.
What?
It's impossible.
34.
Okay, I just totally made this picture up. It has nothing. Like the background is irrelevant right now. So like this is not actually 12. That's not actually 12 squares long right there. Okay,
No way you counted.
so how could we find x though?
We have the hypotenuse and the adjacent.
Right, trigonometry. Relative to this angle, we're looking for the what? Adjacent, we have the,
Hypotenuse.
and that is
Cos.
cosine. So cosine of 30 equals adjacent over hypotenuse.
Hypotenuse.
Yeah, it's gonna be
I'm high on pot.
and multiplied by 12.
Right, it was just times 12, you guys remember that? So cosine of 30 times 12, you could just plug in like 12 cosine of 30 probably. Should be like 6 squared of 3 or like 12 point something. 10 point something.
Like actually.
Oh, you have to close your parentheses around.
What'd you get?
Okay,
I
We-
did.
now you put times 12 inside the cosine.
It's 6 square root of 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
How are you?
In this section, actually they just put decimals, so let's hit that decimal button on the calculator.
It's 10.4.
Okay, yeah, let's do 10.4. So this is the x component, that's how far right it's going. Like right here is 10.4. All right, how could we find the y component?
10 squared equals plus y squared equals 12 squared. Yeah.
Okay, you could, I wouldn't recommend that though, because this is a rounded answer. And also, honestly, I think trig would be faster here. Relative to 30 degrees, we're looking for the opposite.
Hypotenuse.
That is So sine of 30 equals opposite over hypotenuse.
Sin cos tan.
I almost,
Six.
Corey, asked you to tell Mr. Cloud how to pronounce square root. But-
Wait, say it. Say it.
Six.
Are you doing it on purpose or is that just how you say it?
No, that's just what I
Say
see.
zero.
Yeah.
Zero.
Okay, I just had a conversation.
General future say it like that.
It's
I don't
roots.
remember.
It's, so do you say root?
Hey,
like
square,
root?
hey,
Roots.
say two
Roots.
words. Hey, say two words.
Dude, what?
Tour.
He's mad.
Okay,
Guys, it's actually
It's tour.
guys, how do you pronounce this word?
10.
Ten.
Okay, milk, it's milk, not milk.
No way.
Milk? Milk.
M-I-L-K.
Milk.
It's not M.
It doesn't take expired.
Okay.
I don't even want to.
Wait, you guys didn't know?
Listen. This is how you're supposed to pronounce it. 10. Like eh. 10. This is how most people pronounce it. 10.
Ten.
And this is how Case pronounces it.
No, I'm always like, hey, bestie, and he's always like, Miss Tennessee.
Yeah, he always calls me Mr. U.
Why did,
Bro, he's like,
talk
I'm Mr.
I call him
Edwards.
Mr.
Yeah,
Green.
you're not
Mr.
civil.
U.
Mr.
What time did you just want us to be?
I literally just say
Orange.
French.
Oh, yes. We're like those.
So we wanted me to send him.
Well, he said like,
And then he sends me this YouTube short later of like this guy, and he's like, this is so me. And I was like, right.
Okay, on 13. Alright, traveling 15. Hey, traveling 15 degrees south of west. So where is west usually at on a map?
Africa.
Wait.
No, I'm just kidding.
America.
To the left.
Never eat
Who's that?
turkey.
Did you say America?
We're north.
Okay, we are in the western hemisphere. Kind of makes sense. But on a map, up is north, right is east, down is south, right, northeast.
No, never eat soggy waffles.
Okay, shh.
This last thing.
All right. So the problem said, I'm reading 13, 15 degrees south of west. So where would that be?
South of what?
South of west. Here's west, so south of that is below it. So just a little bit below west. Okay. So we need the components. Oh, and the length of the vector is, okay, it says 50 miles an hour, but that's still the length of the vector.
Yeah.
50. All right. So we need the x component and the y component. Notice on this one, oh, I screwed up on this last one. The y component on number 11 is going down. So we actually should have made this a -6.
I knew it. I tried to tell you.
You tried to tell us, but we wouldn't.
Imagine you did that.
Okay.
Sorry,
So-
my allergies.
All right. The x and the y component on this, x is going backwards, so it's negative, y is going down, so it's negative. So anyway, when we find these answers, we need to make them negative. Now, how do I find x?
You do the angle, and we have the hypotenuse,
Hypotenuse and
and the adjacent.
adjacent uses what function? Cosine.
Cosine.
So it's cosine of the angle equals adjacent,
X over 50.
and then we're gonna plug what in the calculator?
That.
That is really weird. I don't like
Let me do it.
I don't like this anymore.
Okay, we're just rounding to the 10th place.
But it's, I got like
It
a
is,
fraction.
Should be like 48 point something.
yeah.
Bro, what the goof?
48.2962913.
Okay,
It is like
That's what I got. And I-
48 point what?
48.3.
Okay,
I got this.
so because x is going to the left, we're gonna say it's negative 48.3. All right, and then how are we gonna find the y component?
Question.
Okay, here, Emily, I want you to try this one. So, relative to 15 degrees, y is the what side?
Okay.
No.
No, hypotenuse.
Okay, no, yeah. If it's across the way,
Opposite.
it's the opposite. So we're gonna need opposite, and the side that we know already is the what?
Hypotenuse.
Right. Which trig function uses opposite and hypotenuse?
It's easy.
The first one. The sin.
Sine, yes.
Sine.
Okay, so do you know what we're gonna write? Sine?
Sine.
What comes next?
15.
Yes.
And then 50 over
Equals?
x. Equals 50 over x.
Okay, opposite over hypotenuse. What's the opposite?
15.
What's the opposite of 15?
Y.
Y. So it's y over the hypotenuse, which is 50.
Okay.
And then what are we gonna plug in the calculator?
Sine.
Let me do it. She said no.
Well, just tell me and then you can.
Jaden's gonna beat you. Jaden's gonna beat you.
Well, you have to divide it by 50.
Yeah, times by 50.
Hold on.
Okay, 12.9. Now,
12.9.
something's a little bit wrong with my answer.
Yeah. It's gotta be
Negative.
It needs to be negative.
Yeah, it's supposed to be negative.
That's what I said, boy.
I was thinking it, I just couldn't say it out loud.
No.
That's how you did it, actually.
You
She
didn't.
just wanted to give you a chance
We're
to
not
say
thinking.
it.
You did not let
I
it
was.
cook.
Because I noticed looking weird at
Faces
faces.
says you did not cook.
I said you did not let her cook.
Oh.
Yeah. That's me.
Next time I'll let you cook.
Agree better.
Sorry.
And,
We should just figure it out another time.
Okay, number 15.
That's not.
Uh,
oh.
a 125 pound force. Okay, try to picture what this would look like as a picture. Boys. A 125 pound force pulling up a 20-degree ramp to the right.
What?
So it's like this, and then there's like a force pulling up,
Yeah, 125 pound
crane?
force
like a crane hook or something.
pulling up. What do you think they mean by a 20-degree ramp? That means it's.
20 degrees from the ground.
You're right, exactly.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
So proud.
the force. The force would be like the length of our vector, so that's 125 pounds. So that's going right there on the vector.
Spanish quiz today. Yeah.
Oh, you guys always have a Spanish.
You probably
This
are
Jordan.
Jordan.
Gone so much.
I have 25 lines, and 26 lines on my piece of paper.
What is it?
Like the story.
Okay, All right, on this one, are my x and y components going to be positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive, because it's going right and up. So those should, we don't have to worry about negatives on this one. All right, Jaden,
Yeah.
let's start with the x component.
The AX.
Relative to the 20-degree angle, x is the what side?
X is the not the adjacent, the other one.
No, it is.
Oh, yes, I mean.
Okay, because it's right next to it, that's what adjacent means. This is right next to it also, but it's the long side. What's this 125 side?
That's the
Right. So which trig function uses adjacent and hypotenuse?
that's the coast.
Exactly. So it's, do you know what I'm gonna write? Cosine of what?
Of 120.
No. So what go? Yes, the angle always goes right there.
Yeah.
Equals.
My foot's itchy.
So on the SOHCAHTOA thing, cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So what goes on top?
What goes on top would be the adjacent,
Right, which is
which is AX.
right. And then the other one, the hypotenuse, will go on the bottom. And what are we gonna plug in the calculator?
That.
117.
Well, one.
We're gonna plug in cosine of 20,
Sorry.
Right, cosine 20.
and then what do we do with this thing?
Well, you like do that, do like
So
that.
nice.
Okay, if x is being divided by 125, to get rid of it, we multiply by 125. So in the calculator, we're gonna put this. The parentheses needs to close around the 20, not the 125.
Like 117. Hold on. If hashtag equal
45?
No, just 5. Because we're like rounding.
Okay.
Hashtag emo life.
Roman, how about the Y value? How will we set that up?
So you have to go opposite
Yep.
and hypotenuse,
Yeah.
which is, let me think, sin.
Sign.
And then sin equals,
Yep.
no, 20, sorry, 20, not bad. Equals 25, or 125, or 20, x.
Okay.
Yeah, it's x
All right.
over.
SOHCAHTOA. So stands for
Opposite over hypotenuse.
sine of the angle. That's that part. Equals opposite over hypotenuse. So what is the? We already have the angle. Sine of the,
Why?
Roman,
Over
you're never going to be a
1.5.
D1 mathematician.
See, I really do that.
so what are we gonna plug in the calculator?
Sine of 20 times
Yeah, sine of 20.
I got the answer!
All right.
42.8.
Let's go.
42. 42 point what?
8.
Frozen.
Because if you like, round the thing,
Yeah.
we let Jacob cook and we do it.
All right. So I think we'll just go to 16 today.
It's that fresh cut, dude.
Why don't you guys? I would like to see like your number 8. See if you guys got that one right.
I got 0.